Hey guys, yesterday I forgot to rank the albums, which is a cardinal sin on YouTube. So I'm gonna go through the bands that we spoke about, the Deep Purple extended family, and do a quick rundown, quick grading or quick ranking of the albums. I go best to last. I don't understand why a lot of people go worst to best, but who cares? This is the way I like doing it. So let's start with Deep Purple, right? Because they are the patriarchs of the patriarchy. And I'm gonna start with this one, the Concerto. I know that for many people this sounds like a weird choice, but this is a very good, very special, very unique record, very well made. And sometimes I have the impression that it doesn't get the respect that it deserves, and it has some wonderful work from all of the band members, including and of course not excluding Blackmore, the master himself. Next up is in rock, and I don't know who in the world could or would, for whatever reason, disagree with this choice. This is absolutely one of their best. Some people might rank Machine Head above it, and I understand, but the difference, admittedly, is not big in quality. The records sound different. This one to me sounds more raw, more madness, and yet with that, you know, the solo on Speed King, of course, needs no mention. It's legendary, and the entire record, Child in Time, of course, is really not much to talk because we could really sit and talk about it here all night, but it's better to just go and listen to it. And of course, next up is Machine Head, another one that needs no introduction, just a timeless classic. And of course, it's got Pictures of Home. Uh, what's this song is escaping me now? Never before, not before we heard. Yeah, never before. Pictures of Home, never before. Maybe I'm a Leo. Of course, Highway Star, the timeless classics, Highway Star, Smoke on the Water, and of course, Space Truckin' and Lazy. So every single one of them a banger. I think Pictures of Home is a very close favorite of mine. So much for that. And I sometimes, or maybe not just sometimes, more than sometimes, I like to include live records as well, and especially this one. This one is definitely earns its place among being ranked as a studio album because it's just so good. The performances, the entire the sound, the way it's presented is just a phenomenal, very great record, and it definitely belongs. Or deserves being ranked. I'm not gonna do this obviously with the live albums, not just because with Deep Purple it's crazy impossible. There's so many of them, right? Live in Europe and less concert in Japan and live in London and scores of others. Another straight shooter, Perfect Strangers. I know that some people are a little critical of this record, but screw it. For me, this is an amazing record. And just every single song here is an absolute banger. So yeah, definitely earns its place as number 4 on the top. And for those of you who want to hate me for this is how high I'm ranking this guy. This is just a phenomenal record. Unusual, yes. Weird, yes. Not what you'd expect from Deep Purple. Yes, all of that, but bottom line, a phenomenal record. One that you can listen to. I don't know about you, but definitely me. I can listen to it over and over again, just flipping. If Deep Purple never released anything else but these 5, they would already be legendary and unmatched. Okay, so after the top 5 or top 6, if you will, you see, those of you who want to hate on Slaves and Masters, I did you a solid here. I counted I counted Made in Japan among the studio records, and so it kicked Slaves and Masters out of the top 5, but it's still in the top 10. This is not Scotch whiskey, by the way. You know I would never ever drink on a job. Don't do that, you may just get fired. Okay, so after the top five, what can we do uh, in terms of ranking? I would go with Burn. For many, this might be kind of a weird choice, but I love Burn a lot. I love both Coverdale and Hughes vocals, but more than that, I love the new spice, the new flair that they brought to the band, and as unusual and weird as it may sound, and especially that combination of funk and blues that at first sight wouldn't work out. And really, there's not too much funk in here. Hughes was holding back on this record. On the next one, Stormbringer, he let loose more. And you wouldn't associate these two kinds of musical tendencies together, but it worked. It worked with Rich's hard rock, classical driven hard rock. It worked with Lord. So to me, it's a very great album. Yeah, I get it that for some people this is considered ranked too high, but in terms of Deep Purple, I think it definitely earns this place. Next up, self-titled Deep Purple, a phenomenal record. It's still a very early Deep Purple. I don't want to say embryonic because they really only kind of faltered on the first record, but they were all already fairly experienced even on there. But I think that was their first very serious effort. But be it as it may, Deep Purple, the third record, is just amazing. Maybe not from the first note to the last, but definitely you got Bird Had Flown and Why Didn't Rosemary, and of course April, the phenomenal the song with an orchestrated part. So ranks very, very high. And then I would go with Stormbringer, another one. I call Stormbringer kind of Burn on steroids, but not necessarily or not only in a good way. So Stormbringer kind of has a little bit more of its apparent, more of its tired, weaker spots. Not so good on the songwriting on many of them. It has a couple big bangers, of course, the famous ones, Gypsy, and then of course the title track Stormbringer, but Soldier of Fortune. But it has a couple weaker numbers also, so that kind of pushes it down a little bit. Then I would go with Fireball, and I think that Deep Purple's records are so good, and they set the bar so high that people don't even pay attention to the entire catalog, right? And Fireball is one heck of a record. It sounds out of place. It sounds more modern than it actually is, at least in some ways. And last time I spoke to you guys, I told you that it kind of sounds like it came after Machine Head, right? So normally, just by listening to the records, you would think that they did In Rock and then Machine Head and then Fireball, which is not the case. Fireball is sandwiched between In Rock and Machine Head. All in all, great record, great sound, great playing. They still had that energy and the juice flowing in them. Next up, I'm gonna go with Battle Rages On. Despite its weaknesses, I'm a little split on this, a little torn on this, because it really has only three big bangers, and then a couple of songs that are not quite as good, but fairly similarly good. But the album, all in all, is kind of it's lacking something, and yet I would still rank it this high. So in the top, I don't keep count what number we are, but it's close to the top 10, right? Next up, I'm gonna go with the Book of Taliesin, another one that kind of tends to be overlooked a little bit. It has Ring That Neck and a couple other great songs, really. that I like very much, and sometimes you kind of forget about it and neglect it because you always concentrate on the top five, right? Machine Head, In Rock, Perfect Strangers, those kind of records, and this one gets tends to get forgotten. But I listened to it a couple of days ago. Man, it's a phenomenal, very very good record. It's still not as polished and as worked out in the little details, but again, it's a young band. It's just their second record. So Battle Rages On, Book of Taliesin, who do we think we are? Another that's a little bit, I wouldn't say underrated, but it got maligned in recent years due to the internet and all of that exposure. But I think really the main fault of this record is just not being in Rock and Machine Head, and not being exactly in that neighborhood. Again, there is a little bit of less of an excitement, a little bit of less mind exploding, mind boggling creativity. The songs sound a little bit more tame and more regular, normal, but they still deliver the goods. Great playing there, great atmosphere. But they themselves said on numerous occasions that they were already tired and they should have given a break. Again, almost every band says this in retrospect, 20, 30 years after the fact. So who knows, when they were young, I assume they were hungrier and they were more prone and they had more of a will and a tendency to do it. But of course, the flip side is also true. They were probably very young and they were impressionable, and management were able to exert more pressure on them. So who knows? But again, not halfway bad of a record. And next, I'm gonna go on with Bananas, which is my favorite from the Morse era. And I'm not splitting it in Blackmore and Morse era, or Mark One, Mark Two, Mark whatever. So Bananas, I think they blew that one out of the park with the Morse lineup, and of course very different to the original Deep Purple, but still a very worthy and listable record. So that's from all of the Steve Morse Deep Purples. That's the one that spins with me the most. Then I'm gonna go with Infinite, which is one of their newer, also a very very good, very how should I say it, very sweet, very well listenable, very well made out record. Good, they made a very good production, very good sound, very bright drums and guitars. So I like it. And after that, I will go with House of Blue Light. And as much as a lot of people like shitting on it, I'm not one of those. I will listen to House of Blue Light, not every day, not every week, but it definitely gets a couple spins from me. And it's not a bad record, but it's not a super pleasant listen. Pice does some great work there. But there's good songs and good ideas on the record all in all. It does suffer. It's kind of cheesy. It wants to be a little bit rainbow. Doesn't know exactly where it's going. But all in all, not a terrible record by any by the standards of yeah, the greatest of the great of Deep Purple. Yeah, it is a terrible record, or almost terrible. But on its own, it's not halfway bad. We're going back to a Steve Morse selection, Whoosh. Fairly similar to Infinite. They made some changes, but it's kind of becoming a little predictable at this point. And next up, I'm gonna go with Come Taste the Band. Again, not a bad record, but Deep Purple without Blackmore just doesn't taste the same. And this is not just without Blackmore; it's without Glover and without Gillan. Of course, Where Angels Fear to Tread. You Keep on Moving. Again, I will listen to it from time to time. It's a good record. Tommy Bolling's fans make a huge deal out of it, that it's like Randy Road number 2 or whatever. I don't buy it, but the record is not bad, not terrible. But I think overall it would have been better if they called it quits before that record. So when Blackmore leaves, they should have folded and say, hey, let's go our separate way, and then the break would have been 10 years instead of 9, or they would have reunited in '83 instead of '84. Who knows? But anyway, it is what it is. We cannot change the past. And after Come Taste the Bands, I'm gonna go with Shades of Deep Purple. I'm ranking it that low because it has kind of a little childish, little inexperienced, little don't know what's going on flair to it. Production's not that great, sounds not that great. But again, as musicians, they definitely make themselves shine. Of course, not as much as on the latter records, but Blackmore is already flexing his muscle as his Lord, and to some extent Glover and Pice, and I'm sorry, there's no Glover and Pice here. There is Pice definitely, but I meant to say what's his name, Simper, Nick Simper. The vocalist never really impressed me on here, but it's not horrible. It's just another vocalist. They sounded a little bit too much like the Beatles, light years ahead of them, of course, as musicians, but but sounding better. So Shades, Perpendicular, first one with Morse. Pretty good record, I must say. But again, in the overall ranking, this is where I would put it, and then Rapture of the Deep, which I would say is the second worst from the Morse era. Equals one. I put it here, despite the fact that I barely listened to it twice, maybe, and just because Turning to Crime and a band that I don't really like that much. So this much for Deep Purple. Let's follow Maestro Blackmore. Oh my God. Blackmore, Rainbow. I have a difficult time choosing between these two. I mean, in reality, you don't have to choose because you can have both. But there are arguments in favor of each one of them. Rising, of course, they really blew it out of the park, so I'm more inclined to go with Rising. But Richie Blackmore's Rainbow is also a phenomenal record. Had they had a better band behind them, had they had Cozy and Jimmy Bain and a better production and written these same songs, they would have been amazing, and that's exactly what this is. So this is a lot of the first record with Powell and Bain and Tony Carey. Some phenomenal renditions of Catch the Rainbow, Man on the Silver Mountain with Dio's banter in the middle. 16th Century Greensleeves they did Still I'm Sad with vocal. And of course, they introduced a new song, Kill the King, which has not yet been released on studio. And of course, a crazy rendition of Starstruck, albeit a little short. Anyway, great record, and pretty much, I think that Blackmore wanted the Made in Japan under his own name. And to some extent, he did succeed. Not completely, it's not quite at the level of Made in Japan, and that kind of set the bar already pretty high, but it's a very good, very special live record. And of course, then the last one with Ronnie. And after this one, I have to say that despite what anybody might think, I would put here Stranger in Us All, 1995. That's kind of the closest to these. And I think that regardless of the level of consciousness that this happened, this is the very a very hybrid or a bridge record between the Dio and the JLT era or records. So it kind of has the musical allure and a little bit of the vocal. Obviously, Doogie White is not Dio, but he knew what he was doing, and he used his pipe in as much as a Dio approach or a Dio kind of mindset, if you will, without being outright a Dio copycat. So very, very well made. The music itself and the vocal is reminiscent of the first half of Rainbow, and the lyrics are kind of catering to the commercial crowd for whoever listens to lyrics. So great, great record, right? All of the Mountain King and Black Masquerade and all of the other songs there. Really very, very solid, very good record, very well made. Next up, I think I'm going to go with Bent Out of Shape. Admittedly, there's not a huge difference between the three Jolene Turner records, and a lot of people will hate Bent Out of Shape the most, but I think that it has the best, the most professional, the best made songs, at least from the songwriting. Again, cheesy, yes, kind of too commercial, yes. A lot of people will choose Straight Between the Eyes. Even with Straight Between the Eyes, I think I will take Difficult to Cure over it. It's not a big step, so the difference between those three is not big. But I would go after Strangers in Us All. I would go Bent Out of Shape, Difficult to Cure, Straight Between the Eyes, and unfortunately Down to Earth. And lucky and blessed are the musicians whose worst record is Rainbow's Down to Earth. I mean, not a bad record by a country mile. Not the greatest, not what you would expect from Rainbow. The change was a little bit too sudden, an entirely new band for Blackmore. So I think it didn't work out too well for him as a record, as a legacy. I think that sales wise, it sold well. And Graham Bonnet does a fine job. He has some good pipes. Should I do Blackmore's Night? I don't know. Let's go to see Coverdale. I'm a big Coverdale fan, not only on a vocal perspective, but as a musician, as someone who envisions and manages the musical process. This is together with, I didn't take out the other one, but Whitesnake, Ready and Willing, and Love Hunter, to me, constitute the holy trinity of Whitesnake. Just phenomenal records. Everybody's on top of their game. Everything is good. Neil Marie is an absolute legend on the bass. And all the other musicians, of course, Marsden and Moody were a great duo there. All the songs are just good. But I would say Come and Get It is kind of the top of the top. And then afterwards, Ready and Willing and Love Hunter. I think in that order. And that's also the opposite order in which they were released. So that's good for a band to be on an upward streak. Next, I would go with this. Despite the Haters, 1987 is a phenomenal record. John Sykes is amazing. Marie does a great job. And Ainsley Dunbar, kind of an unexpected choice here. On the next one, I'm a little torn because there are so many good choices, and I know some of you are gonna hate me for this, but I think I'm gonna go with Slip of the Tongue. I don't know why this record gets so much hate. It does give a little bit the impression of trying to be like a 1987 number two. I get it, but Steve Vai and everybody here shines. The songs are great, the production, the playing, everything. It's not 1987. It didn't reach quite that high, but again, it's a tall order. So to me, it's a very good record. And I was a little bit torn on maybe to put Good to Be Bad above it. Well, but I think most people would have hated me even more for that. And I wanted to kind of leave Good to Be Bad together with Forevermore because they're so close. So again, 1987, Slip of the Tongue, Good to Be Bad, Forevermore, Slide It In. I would go with Slide It In, probably over Saints and Sinners, although sometimes on the fence. But Slide It In is a good record. It has a couple bummers on that record, but Slide It In, especially the American version, is very, very good. So let's just say if we would split it, I would say Saints, Slide It In American version, and then Saints and Sinners, and then Slide It In European or English version. Be it as it may, after Slide It In Saints and Sinners, I would go with Restless Heart. This is where we go into the lower snakes in the less good Whitesnake. I think Restless Heart was when I began listening to it was kind of a bummer, but it has 3 songs that redeem it. Maybe I should have pushed it a little lower. Into the Light, you could make the argument it's a better record. Then you have the Purple album. Maybe the Purple album should be above Restless Heart, maybe. And then I'd go with North Winds. Again, that's billed as a David Coverdale, but I think it's David Coverdale's Whitesnake or something like that. And then Snakebite, which is another. Maybe that was an EP, but there is then another version that combines half of North Winds or half of Whitesnake with it. And then Flesh and Blood. That's the last studio record that didn't really do it to me that much. And Whitesnake, the original Whitesnake with David Coverdale, and finally Trouble, which some of you might hate me a lot for. Those who are ardent fans of the first iteration of Whitesnake, they hold Trouble in high esteem. I find it a little childish, a little juvenile, and not necessarily from the lyrics perspective, but the music. It's trying to be too Beatlesy, too milquetoast, too lack of an identity. Pretty much everything else he did, he imprinted himself much better on it. Although the song "The Time Is Right for Love" is amazing. It's kind of have a little bit, a tiny drop of Beatles-y flair. Not so much, more folksy maybe. I'm a little sad that it hasn't been picked up more in live performances. I know that he came back to do it. I don't even know if it was a release, but he definitely put it out on video. I think he's sitting there with Doug, or maybe it was Joel Hoekstra. I think it was Doug Aldrich. They did kind of a acoustic guitar sing-along, but the original is very, very good, and I think that song would have sat and done very well in a live set. But anyway, this is it with Whitesnake. Come and Get It, Ready and Willing, Love Hunter, 1987, and let's just say Slip of the Tongue, or maybe Good to Be Bad, constitute the top 5, and then we have the rest. And unfortunately to me, Trouble is the bottom of the pile. Like I told you, I'm not familiar enough with Gillan to give an opinion. The only thing is, I forgot to mention, shame on me. In the previous video, I failed to mention Jesus Christ Superstar, which another Andrew Lloyd Webber brainchild and production, which was very, very good. Gillan appears on it, so that one is definitely good. So I'll give Gillan that much. But I mentioned all of his solo records yesterday in the video, and again I didn't listen to most of them or to many of them, so I don't know them definitely. I don't know them enough to give an opinion. I had 2, maybe 3 Gillan records in my possession when I was a kid, and I haven't listened to them practically since. So that much for Gillan. Let's do Dio, but just a band Dio, not Ronnie Dio with Black Sabbath and everything else I did. So we went through the Rainbow part with him. Actually, it would be interesting to at least go through his career year by year, album by album, and maybe do a ranking. Who knows? Let me know in the comments if anyone's interested in that. Anyway, Dio Records. I'm a little split, and I know that some will be particularly ticked by this, but I can almost rank Sacred Heart as their first one. Yes, there is kind of a personal, emotional sort of things. That was my first Dio record and one of the very, very first records that I ever bought. So it creates a sort of a bond, sort of a memory there. I was pretty young and I didn't even have a turntable. I had to beg my father to play my records, and on occasion he would agree. But I would put Holy Diver. I mean, it's a great record. You can't argue with it. So let's go with Holy Diver first, Sacred Heart second, Last in Line, another phenomenal record, and I'll go with Lock Up the Walls in the fourth place. That's how good that record is. It's kind of weird. It kind of takes a step into the occult or into the trendy and fashiony, but not in a very bad way. I think that they had some very, very good songs on their there's Between Two Heart, but there's another song that I like very much, not Hey Angel. I forget now the names of the songs, but definitely there's some great work on there, a little bit darker, a little bit doomier record that does not necessarily gel so well with Dio, but I think on this one he succeeded in doing a good job. Next up I will go with Magica, that's already in the new millennium, and then Killing the Dragon. Coming back to the 80s with Dream Evil, I think that record got a lot of hate, a little bit more than deserved. So of course the difference between Campbell and Goldie was big, and people didn't like Goldie. I think people hate on him a little too much, but yeah, definitely a different, very different style of a player. Brought a more Americanized flavor to the band. But all in all, it's not bad at all. The songs are good, the sound is good, and it still has that initial. I think in a way that it's more of a step back towards the first two from Sacred Heart. So I think that from Sacred Heart he wanted to come back a little bit to what the first two were, but he didn't quite get it. So I think Craig Goldie might end up being the right person for that. But he came back later on to play on some of the later records. So anyway, after Dream Evil, I would go with Master of the Moon, which was his last ever release before he started working again with Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, as they called it later on. Not a brilliant album, but entirely tolerable. And then come those that I don't like, Angry Machines, and finally Strange Highway, which to this day I really dislike that record. I can listen to a couple of songs here and there, but that's what it is. Well, Dio, part of his amazing legacy is his records under his own name, his own band, and this is the ranking. So let's do a quick rundown to Dixie Dregs, because Dixie Dregs are an amazing, incredible, insane band in their own right. And yes, they were Morris's band before Deep Purple, but again, whether we like it or not, Morris had definitely left his mark on the band. Of course, it's not like it's not like the original Deep Purple, but I think he held on himself very well. The live performances were amazing. I mean, he's an incredible guitar player, and really kudos for him in how he came and made himself an integral part of Deep Purple. So anyway, enough of that. Dixie Dregs is a crazy, insane band. Think Tempest, Colosseum 2, Return to Forever, Mahavishnu, that kind of neighborhood. But I think it has a little bit more guts, a little punch, has a little bit of southern rock flair to it sometimes. So great band. I would go with Night of the Living Dregs, the live record, mind-blowing, phenomenals. And then Dregs of the Earth, released I think in 81 or 2 or 80. And then Unsung Heroes, also a very good record, pretty close to Dregs of the Earth, was released I think Dregs of the Earth was 80 and Unsung Heroes 81. Then I would go with the first record, Free Fall, was kind of a very special and unique record when it came out, but then as time went on, they progressed and they became better and more put together, more congealed. So yeah, Free Fall, great record. Then What If, which I think came right after. And the last two, I am not super familiar with them. So then they took some longer breaks and they did Industry Standard and Full Circle. I haven't heard them in a very long time. I think Full Circle, I never really gave it the listen that was due. That was kind of after a long break. And then from all their reunions, if I'm not mistaken, they never released another record. Definitely not with the classic lineup. So not with Morris, Morgenstein, and West, and Lavitz. So this is it. I'm not gonna go into Blackmore's Night too much because I think most of you hate it. But I would say the first 4 records should be pretty much a must listen to everybody. Shadow of the Moon, Under a Violet Moon, Ghost of a Rose, The Village Lantern. So Village Lantern was released before Ghost of a Rose, but in the ranking, this is how I would go. Shadow of the Moon, Violet Moon, Ghost of a Rose, Village Lantern, and then the latter ones, Nature's Light. That's the one from 2022, 2021. So the last studio release, they came back a lot to the original Blackmore's Night. So very good record. Secret Voyage was a great record. That's the most, I would say, the strangest. It has a lot of rainbow in it, a lot of kind of the commercial end of rainbow, but it has a little bit of Theo's rainbow, also a little bit darker, more metal. It's not a metal record, but it has a little metal feel, metal flair to it. I think these are those that are worth a mention. Autumn Sky wasn't bad. They released a lot of live records, which are good. The live performances were very often very good. And then he did the reunion with Rainbow with this Ronnie Romero, which was also very good. And there's a record of it. That's actually a Rainbow record, but it's kind of Rainbow with Blackmore's Night. Candice looks like she had some control over him, and I think the drummer was the drummer who's been playing with them for a long time. So that much for it. I'm trying to think on one more good Blackmore's Night record. I'm failing to remember the name. The one with the Carry On John. I think it was released in 2013. That's not Autumn Sky though. All it's no, it's not all our yesterdays. The one that has Lady in Black, so that one also is worth mentioning. Anyway, um, I think I redeemed myself, and I ranked all of them, so I was able to fulfill the YouTube commandment. And let me know what other bands you'd like to hear about. I like pairing two bands, and two bands that do not necessarily go together, but they should have something in common. So let me know. And until the next time, keep rocking.